Hello and welcome back to the KanCare Ombudsman Liaison Training. We're continuing our line-by-line guide of the KanCare application for the elderly and persons with disabilities. In this module, we'll be covering application pages 7 through the top portion of page 9, specifically what documentation to provide for the resource and assets tests, and possible penalties for changing ownership of property for under fair market value over the past 5 years. Next, we'll be talking about resources or assets. When you talk about resources and assets, you're talking about money that you have put aside in a life insurance policy or in stocks and bonds, savings accounts, different things like that, things that you could liquidate and turn into cash. So please be honest and complete in the application in this section. Put everything in here and let the eligibility team sort it out. Not everything you put in this section will be held against you. Exemptions do exist. So make sure you report all money in each specific category. Anything you put here will need to be backed up with a statement from the bank or the applicable governing body. Again, some resources, assets, are exempt and some are non-exempt. So most plans have asset limits or resource limits. The state may not count some of these assets. For example, the state doesn't count your home or the land it sits on, doesn't count your primary home or the land it sits on, doesn't count one car, some burial plans, furniture, household items. And for example, the state does count other assets like bank accounts, saving, checking, stocks and bonds, some life insurance policies, the ones that have the cash value, things like that. But just be honest and fill in everything completely. And if you do claim something, you want to get documentation backing up what you claim. The eligibility team needs to know about your resources to determine if you qualify for benefits. If you answer yes to any of these items, you must provide details about the resource. If you have more than one of any of these items, you may need more room to write the required details. And if you need more room, just attach additional pages. Checking and savings account. KDHE needs copies of your checking account. You should send copies of your itemized statements with a full month of activity. You'll want to provide statements for each month you're requesting coverage. So if you have more than one checking account, also please use the extra lines in this section labeled Other or add another page. So for example, on your checking account, if you have a debit card, then you'll have a checking account, and KDHE will ask you for your updated checking accounts, and they'll want a full month's activity for every month you're applying. If you say you have Social Security disability benefits, again, they're going to ask for a checking account, the itemized statements. And the way that they look at this is they want to see, again, they're looking at your assets and resources. How much do you have in there? But here's how they look at it. They take 1 month, and they don't take the ending balance. They look for the lowest balance in that month. And then they also subtract from that any of your income, your income check that would have been in there, because they're not going to count that income as income and also as an asset. So again, they take your 30 days worth of bank account information, they find the lowest balance within that 30 days, and then they subtract your income from that, and that's the balance that they look at to see where you are on the asset amount for the checking account. Savings accounts, again, provide statements for each month you're requesting coverage. If you have more than one savings account, be sure to use those extra lines that say Other or add another page. Certificate of Deposits or CODs and retirement plans. For Certificate of Deposits, these are the same as a savings account. Provide statements for each month you're requesting coverage. For retirement plans, this could be an IRA, a 401k, or other account, or funds set up for retirement. KDHE requires a statement which reflects the owner and the balance. For nursing facility accounts and stocks and bonds, on nursing facility accounts. This could be a resident trust fund or resident care home account. These are the same as checking accounts. Provide statements with the full months of activity, and remember to provide statements for each month you're requesting coverage. For stocks, it's important to indicate the type of stock and a statement showing the current value of that stock. For bonds, please provide a copy of your bond. Funeral arrangements and burial plans. Make sure you have the following documentation. For funeral or burial plans, it's a requirement to verify if a funeral arrangement will be considered a resource to the applicant. So please provide a copy of the funeral arrangements. The copy of the funeral arrangements needs to contain 3 things: an itemized statement of goods and services, a statement signed indicating that the arrangements are irrevocable, and 3, how the arrangements were funded. Regarding the cap on exempt funeral arrangements, there is no limit to the amount of merchandise or the actual burial space or plot included in an irrevocable funeral plan. Items that would be considered burial space items or merchandise are the casket, urn, outer burial container, headstone, monument, engraving, opening, closing of the grave, internment, etc. However, there is a limit of $7,000 for funeral services included in an irrevocable funeral plan. Any services in excess of $7,000 would be considered a countable resource. Services included in the funeral memorial service, viewing, visitation, services include the funeral memorial service, viewing, visitation, transportation, obituary notices, services of the funeral director and staff, honorariums, flowers, etc. Again, there is a limit of $7,000 for those type of funeral services included in an irrevocable funeral plan. Any services in excess of $7,000 would be considered a countable resource. This information may be found in the medical key sum section 5430. So if you need to look at that up, you would go to the KanCare website into the key sum manual. For burial plots, just indicate that you have one. Does anyone in the household have a vehicle? Be sure to put all the vehicle information down here. Anyone in the home or in the household owning a vehicle needs to be included here. Remember, the state does not count one car. Life insurance. It's very common for most applicants to have a life insurance policy. The state counts most life insurance policies as assets. Not sending in your verification of life insurance policies with your application will increase the application processing time. To verify a policy, the KDHE eligibility team asks the applicant to request a letter from the insurance company which contains the following 6 items: the policy number, the policy owner, type of policy, for example, whole life or term, number 4, the face value, the cash value, and number 6, any loans which have been taken out against the policy. Page 8 of the application, the resources are continued. This is a question that often comes up, and I think this is a good place to discuss this. What if a current member has Medicaid currently and all of a sudden they accidentally go over their resource asset limit? Note, not all programs have a $2,000 resource or asset limit, or some programs don't even have an asset limit at all, but many do, so we'll use the $2,000 resource limit as an example. So for example, once a member goes over the $2,000 limit, they are supposed to report it to the clearinghouse within 10 days, because anytime your assets increase, you're supposed to report that. Then the clearinghouse would have to react to it and close the case because they're now over the resource limit in order to get KanCare. The member will then need to show proof that he or she is under the $2,000 limit and where that money went.
proof of what they spent that money down on from their checking account, etc. If the member actually spent down those excess funds fast enough, they could actually go over the limit and then back under the limit again all in 1 month and would never lose any months of eligibility. What can you spend down someone's resources on to meet that resource or asset limit? The member or their family cannot spend it on anyone other than the member or the applicant. The correct way to spend down resources and assets is on the member's needs. And you'll need to show the money trail, proof of where that money went, what it was spent on. You could spend it on clothes for the member, burial plan, TV, whatever the member's needs are, debts, again, only for the member or applicant. If you want to talk to someone about what you can or cannot spend it on, you could contact the KanCare Clearinghouse at 1-800-792-4884. If you can't figure out what to spend it on, you could also prepay estate recovery. You can contact Estate Recovery to talk to them also at 785-296-6707.
Home ownership. It's important to list the information about the applicant's home. Does the applicant live in a facility while the spouse still lives at home? Does the applicant living in a facility intend to return home? All of these things make a difference in eligibility determination. What if the applicant is living in a nursing home or some other long-term care facility? When answering the question, if the owner does not live there, does the owner intend to return home? Well, what if the applicant living in the nursing home miraculously gets better? Would they return to this home? If they would want to return home, even if it wasn't very likely, it is appropriate to answer this question yes. And this is important to understand. Remember, for most programs, for that have assets and resources tests, they don't count the home as a resource or asset. However, for nursing facility coverage, single persons must have assets below $2,000, and they will not count the value of the home if the person intends to return home. So answering this question yes or no will make a difference in whether or not they count that house as an asset. Other real estate. This question does not include the land that the applicant's primary residence sits on. Remember, the state does not count as an asset your primary home or the land it sits on. But other real estate, land that the applicant's primary residence is not sitting on, for example, if you own other land or buildings, please document that here. Life estate or life interest in any property. If the applicant has no idea what this is, most likely they don't have one. What is a life estate? It's a form of joint ownership that allows one person to remain in a home until his or her death, then the home passes to another owner. Do you have a trust? If the applicant owns a trust, document it here, but it's also important to document all the assets that are a part of the trust on page 7, the Tell Us About Your Resources section of the application as well. If marked yes, KDHE will need a full copy of the entire trust along with all the schedules. Investments and annuities. This section describes annuities owned by the applicant or their spouse. If the individual owns an annuity, the state of Kansas must be named as the beneficiary of any annuity which they owned that was purchased on or after February 8, 2006. The individual agrees to make this assignment once they sign the application. What is an annuity? An annuity is a fixed sum of money paid to someone each year, typically for the rest of their life. It might be an inheritance passed down or a form of insurance or investment. Some examples of annuities are he left her an annuity of $1,000 in his will, or the investor is entitled to a series of annual sums from an annuity plan. Does someone owe you money? For example, did the applicant loan someone $8,000 6 months ago? Other assets. This would include things like motorcycles, tractors, farm equipment, trailers, RVs, boats, livestock, oil rights, and machinery. If you have any other assets, please list those here. We're now moving on to page 9 of the application. We'll be covering the top section in this video. If you want to cover the bottom section of page 9 and the remainder of the application, that will be on our next video. Have you or your spouse taken out a loan against any property in the last 5 years, including a second mortgage or a reverse mortgage? A reverse mortgage is a loan available to homeowners 62 years or older that allow them to convert part of the equity in their home into cash. If the consumer has one, the eligibility team will need the contract from the reverse mortgage that shows the gross amount of money they get from it. Did you waive any rights? Have you or your spouse ever waived rights to an inheritance or to a will? If you answer yes, then that amount of money is considered a resource or asset. It would also be considered gifted because it's money you could have had. And in just a few slides, we'll discuss when you gift away money or gift away resources or assets. Estate planning is the process of arranging during a person's life for the disposal of their estate. If the applicant has paid for someone to help them manage assets, list those professionals here. There is a fact sheet on estate recovery. Basically, estate recovery program recovers assets from the estates of certain deceased Medicaid members. This may include estates of persons age 55 or older, or it may also include estates of any age of person who received long-term care services, such as nursing facility. So you just won't ever see this on family medical, family with children programs, but when you get into the long-term care programs is where you would see estate recovery. The majority of the claims are for the following services: nursing facility or home and community-based services, any related hospital care and prescription drug services providing while receiving nursing facility care or care at home or in a community setting. How do I contact estate recovery? You can call 785-296-6707 or mail Estate Recovery Unit, P.O. Box 2428 in Topeka, Kansas, 66601. To contact the contractor for health management systems, you can call 1-800-817-8617, or their fax is 646-465-6530. This is a helpful fact sheet on understanding estate recovery, and it will be included with all the other resources. And again, you'll have instructions on how to find these resources at the end of the video. Have you sold, traded, gifted, or changed ownership of property in the last 5 years? Please document any change in ownership of any property within the last 5 years in this section. This could be sale of vehicles, transferring resources to a trust fund, giving assets to family members, etc. Gifting, selling, or transferring property for less than fair market value can result in a period of ineligibility for long-term care coverage. So, for example, programs like nursing facility, HCBS, or PACE. The KDHE eligibility team must look back for transfers within the last 5 years. For a nursing home, the amount of penalty divided by about $5,000 equals the number of months where the person would not be eligible for nursing facility coverage. So, for example, a parent gifts their child their $100,000 home. That $100,000 is divided by $5,000, which equals approximately 20 months of ineligibility for that nursing facility coverage. If the average stay in a nursing facility is $5,500 a month, which is a very conservative number, that would lead to an out-of-pocket cost to that parent of about $110,000. If you would like to continue with this line-by-line guide of the KanCare application for the elderly and persons with disabilities, please check out the next liaison training video. There is also a printable line-by-line application guide available in this section.
If you're a KanCare applicant or member and you're needing help to resolve a KanCare issue, we are here to assist you. Also, if you're a provider assisting someone or a family member or a neighbor and you're trying to help a KanCare applicant or member, we are here to help you also. Give us a call. Our toll-free number is 1-855-643-8180. Again, that's 1-855-643-8180, or email us at kancare.ombudsman@ks.gov.